if we talk about the positives of having a divergent brain, problem solving, great in a crisis, highly creative, pattern recognition, and of course that, the big picture thinking, the highly creative, the pattern side of things leans itself very much to a creative role. And you don't hear that enough, right? You don't hear those things enough. You just hear people say ADHD, it's a deficit, it's a disorder. Well, it's not, it's just a difference.
Hi, I'm Nunn, and this is the mess we're in, i.e. life. Because life is, in fact, one big mess that we are all trying to make sense of and navigate our way through. The universe itself is a vast expanse of unorganised chaos. Stars are exploding all over the place, which makes me feel a sense of ease. I want to enable conversations that allow us to all embrace our mess at every level, or at least feel open and comfortable talking about it. I hope you enjoy our ramblings. Welcome, Natalina Harrison. How are you?
I'm good, actually. Yeah, it's Friday afternoon. I'm ready for a hot weekend with some ice cream.
Oh, yes. I'm waiting for some ice cream as well at the end of the day. It's just been so sweltering, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been quite crazy. But we can't complain, can we?
No, we can't complain, exactly. Well, it's so fabulous to have you on the podcast with me. Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation. I've really wanted to actually speak to somebody in your field because you work in the field of neurodiversity and you're a specialist in ADHD, an ADHD coach. And I find the whole world and discussion and dialogue that is so prominent at the moment, and rightly so, really, really interesting. And I think it's really pertinent to talk to someone that is an expert in this field, given this idea of mess and this topic of mess, and how I've referenced on the podcast loads the messy mind, or how we can sometimes feel messy in our minds, and also don't want it ever, we can get into this, to feel as if it's a derogatory way to reference someone's mind. And obviously the complexities around neurodiversity and how our minds are and how they function, how our brains are, how they're all so different. Yes, I'm fascinated by the topic. So yeah, grateful to have you. Thanks, Nat. So could you give me a little bit of background on you and the work that you do and your journey so far, and how you got to become an ADHD coach?
There's a long journey there. I think okay, I'll start chronologically is probably the easiest. So when I was a child in the 80s, my mother told me I had ADHD, which was quite bonkers, considering I guess it was probably a hot topic in the US at the time, but it really wasn't a thing here, and there was no such thing as a diagnosis. But I definitely had hyperactivity, and I wasn't allowed anywhere near anything with tartrazine, like the orange colouring, or I couldn't eat chocolate till I was 15. I wasn't allowed because it's something bonkers. I guess at some point just thought I'd grown out of it because I was hyperactive externally, and then I stopped being so as I became a teenager.
Really?
Although I did like going clubbing a lot.
Okay. Were your parents neurodivergent? Did they have any diagnoses? Was it even diagnosed at the time? You said that it wasn't, no.
I think the 90s, the first diagnosis started coming through here.
Okay.
So
you acknowledged it as a teen? Or prior to being a teen, and then when you became a teenager and felt that perhaps things had shifted?
I'm always very academic, so I guess I was able to really hyper focus into school, and I really enjoyed school, and it was a very supportive environment, and so I didn't see any negative impact as such. I guess the only thing I can think back to now was like I could never do my homework without the television on. And it's that, that ability to focus whilst having something else that's taking the edge off your focus in the background that allow me to just calm down and concentrate.
Okay. And it almost helped you order, like, hyper-focus your mind.
Yeah, to just be able to get things done. Often you'll find ADHDers like to do two things at once. So like is it multitasking? I guess so, but I don't know. Apparently multitasking doesn't exist because we flip between in a microsecond between the two activities. But often we like to do two things or three things at once. But yes, I think I went to university. I studied physics at university in Manchester. And I started to fall apart in my second year, really. I think I was lucky in a way that my course was quite structured. So we had 2 days in lab and like another 2 days in lectures and then tutorials. It wasn't like my best friend's who was doing history and she had 6 hours a week and didn't manage to actually make it to 5 of those.
I remember that sort of being my scenario as well at uni.
But just the lack of structure around getting large bodies of work done. Like I was always last minute. I was a crammer for exams, and I remember coming to my nuclear exam, my final nuclear paper, and I'd completely left it till the last minute. And when I looked back through 24 session notes, and we had done two equations over 24 hours of lectures.
Wow.
And
really?
I just was like, I was like,
that's
I haven't got a cat and house chance here. This is not gonna, happen.
Just the idea of nuclear science, though, I mean, that's intense for me. It makes me just think of Oppenheimer. I can't quite. Yes. That's not something that I don't think I would be able to put my mind to in itself.
I was going to say, a lot of people sort of pedestal you, especially as a woman who worked, was from a science background, and then my career was in technology, and a lot of people will pedestal you for that. But to normalize it, it's just the top of my spiky profile. It's not. Which we can come to later, but I don't think it's an exceptional thing. It's just whilst, it's more normal to be amazing at French or amazing at English literature, that's, I guess that's the only thing. It's just mine happens to be science. So yes, my degree didn't go too well, which I think is a common point at which many neurodivergent people start to experience real problems. It's really that need for organising, planning, self-motivation, getting activated. It's like it sort of becomes a bit of a perfect storm. Luckily for me, I had done an internship with the investment bank JPMorgan in the summer of my third year. And so when I went back to university, they had offered me an unconditional offer. And so I knew I had a job to come to.
Yes. That's fortunate.
So the fact that I disappointed myself in my degree, but it didn't matter, thankfully. So, but it would have today, I would say. We want to know.
Yeah, it's funny how we measure ourselves, isn't it? Because you still got into a huge, corporate. It depends as well what you define as your metrics of success. But getting an internship, getting a placement rather at a huge, massive corporate company like that is no small feat as well.
Yes, well, ADHDs can rise to the occasion when we're put under pressure, which is what investment bank's like from people. And we also have lots of stamina, and we can just go and go and go and go, and rarely getting to a point of feeling like we're exhausted or tired. Not until it's too late, anyway. And
then you hit like a burnout scenario.
Yes.
So is it that intensity and the pressure actually drives, and it's like a stimulation in the brain and a drive, I guess, to get things done?
Most neurodivergent people, I would say, who have some ADHD characteristics are driven by interest. We say driven by interest, not importance. So it's really difficult to get interested in something that's important but doesn't seem stimulating to us. And what creates positive interest are things like novelty, things about, feeling that you've got a challenge to rise to, places where we can demonstrate our amazing strengths, connection, which is where body doubling often comes in, and why that connection with somebody else can really stimulate us to being interested and then help us achieve something.
Fascinating. I do, and I know we've talked a little about my own possible inclinations of neurodivergent traits that I have, and I do feel like really akin to that sense of being driven by interest. Is always I've always found myself geared that way, that if I find something interesting, I can throw myself wholeheartedly into it. And yet, I understand. I understand that side of things.
And to sort of, I guess, to preempt someone saying, well, that must make sense. Of course, anything that's interesting to people, it would be easy for everyone to do. But the differentiator is that for most people, if something is important to get it done, then they will just get on and do it. But when your brain is so focused on is this interesting? Can I find something in this? No, I can just see this as a boring task. There is like a pure, like visceral resistance to starting doing it. And it literally is like forcing yourself through like something that's so uncomfortable in your body. You have to learn to do that. Like you can't just, go around, go through life just
avoiding anything important.
Yeah. But so you learn to do it, but people who've got ADHD will identify with that horrible feeling. And also like how draining it is. Like it impacts the executive functions of, if you force yourself to do something, it impacts your executive function of how you feel. So it will emotionally dysregulate you. It will also impact your effort, executive function, and your energy levels. And it will probably impact your memory in the coming days, because memory relies very much on making sure that your emotions are in check and that your effort levels haven't been extended beyond where you can give them. So,
wow, so you've really got to preempt or plan for where you are willing to sacrifice your energy.
Yes,
I imagine, and prepare.
This is what I work with many clients on. I'm trying to help clients get to a point where they can do ADHD on purpose. So when we talk about you've got this podcast maybe that you want to start and do, and knowing that you have neurodivergent traits, knowing that these are the general places that you would fall down in, what do you want to do to try and risk manage this or preempt this? Or how could you change the environment or change your the way you are in terms of your fuel or your general demeanor in order to make it an easier thing to do? So it's like very much doing with the full knowledge of how your brain works. How are you going to do this on purpose and then set yourself up for success?
Yeah, use it in a positive way. That's so interesting, but I can imagine so hard, and a lot of boundarying needed, and a lot of acknowledgement and awareness of how you have to obviously just be prepared to say no to certain things so that you don't get yourself into a mess, let's call it, by going too far into something, throwing too much at one thing to then not enable you to complete another thing that is important and you do also have interest in. So there must be a lot of power and just constant assessment of a lot of additional maintenance of your own mind and where you're putting your energy.
Yes, and that's spot on, Liv, because essentially, ADHD has traditionally got labelled with being lazy, or not just why can't you just there's the phrase why can't you just clean that room? Why can't you just pick up your plate and put it in the dishwasher? Why can't you just as a child, all these things are said to neurodivergent children like it's an easy thing. But it's like internally, that isn't the experience you have. Like these things are extremely hard. And this is why a lot of kids who go to school and don't necessarily, show their ADHD traits or their neurodivergent traits in school. But what happens when they come home is they've had to use so much more energy than someone who's neurodivergent, that they just literally collapse when they come in the door. And it is a mini burnout cycle, if you like. It's like you have to put so much more effort than somebody who isn't neurodivergent into something, and then you need to recoup back. And I mentioned spiky profiles. So spiky profiles fall across a lot of executive functions. They're not just in terms of an intellect thing or in terms of a capability thing. So traditionally people would say it in terms of capabilities, like my spiky profile is, I'm really good at, spreadsheets or finance or anything like that, but I'm really not great at getting the washing up done. And, I'm really good in a crisis. I can I literally, my brain just slows down to a complete form of complete clarity in a crisis, which was very handy when I worked in investment banking systems or trading technology, and the trading system went down, right? You need someone
you need somebody that can stay calm.
Yeah, and just work methodically through it.
Interesting. That's so interesting. And I guess I wanted to ask, when you were talking there, we'll definitely come back around to your journey and career, but so when you were a child, is there a presumption or is there an obvious association and correlation with children that are deemed messy or have these traits of being untidy or not being able to clean up after themselves, or they have their specific traits that might get associated with a child that's got ADHD or neurodivergent? Like when you were growing up, were you physically messy, or is there a correlation? I don't want to make sweeping generalizations, but do you think there are correlations then between some people that are neurodivergent and physical mess? Or
yes, there is. Yeah, I mean, I've yet to meet an ADHDer who doesn't long for a declutterer.
I've actually got a declutterer coming onto the podcast. I'm excited to talk to them because it's another angle of which to approach. They're literally helping people sort out their mess and learn to thrive and not have to do it themselves. And for some people, that's going to be incredibly beneficial. Yeah,
definitely. I have benefited too, I have to say.
Good.
But one of the, I guess, a questionnaire around ADHD would probably ask, do you have piles of stuff in your house? Do you find you can't sort of just clear through the mess? Do you find you can tidy up? And I'm definitely living today in a mess, and I have to use external pressures to help me tidy up. So today I knew I was talking to you, and I might have a camera in various parts of the house. So you have given me the energy to tidy up.
So there's an impetus to do it.
Yeah. So I guess the joke is, how do you know someone's an ADHDer? Because they only tidy up when someone else is coming around their house.
Yeah.
Because it's immensely boring.
It's got to be a reason. So,
a lot of things that are not intellectually stimulating are quite tricky, and often, I know I mentioned the hyperactivity aspect before, but when you internalize hyperactivity, your brain becomes very hyperactive. And I also think the type of ADHD that often girls have, which is predominantly inattentive, is really hyperactivity in the brain, which means you're just thinking constantly about a thing to a thing to a thing to a thing. You might be running 2 or 3 things at once. You might be playing a game. I'm often playing a game in my head, which sort of keeps me occupied and calms me down a little bit. And one of my games is I'm only allowed, if I pick something up in one room to take it to another, I have to pick something up in the next room to take it to another room. It's kind of a little
that's a way to tidy. Make it a game in your head. What a good tip.
Not very productive. But
so you don't think, do you just move the mess from one place to another?
Yes, but also after about the third thing, I've walked halfway around the house and I'm tired by that point. I want a cup of tea. So
or you become distracted by something else and get or somebody caught. I know that's the thing, isn't it? I find my attention span it's just dwindled as I've got older, but also we have so much more information that's just constantly being thrown at us from every angle, especially in the online space. But do you find then that if you do clean up, does it feel rewarding? Is there a dopamine fix from doing that? Is there anything that sort of incentivizes beyond somebody coming around or recording a podcast?
I mean, I would say, I find it quite embarrassing. I would say for a start off, and I'm a big advocate for moving away from shame, because a lot of neurodivergent people carry a lot of shame that has been built up from childhood because of the 10,000 more negative messages they receive by the age of 12 or whatever the statistic is. And I find it embarrassing because I went through a phase in my teenage years of almost turning into a perfectionist about it. Like I went the opposite way. Like it was always like, my mum had never been able to get me to tidy or clean or fold or anything. And then I suddenly learned what it was. And then this could be moving towards the autism spectrum disorder standpoint, but through being able to do it to perfection, I found that extremely rewarding from a dopamine standpoint.
Okay, so it's like taken to an extreme to have to feel a certain benefit from it.
Yeah, and having the time.
But that's not healthy. The way that then it sounds like your attitude wouldn't have been healthy for you because of exactly that, the perfectionist pressure that is inbuilt when you're trying to fulfill and please people, or even to please yourself. Yeah, I get it.
And because of that, I guess in my head, in an ideal world, I would be able to clean my own house from top to bottom to a very high standard. And when you've got 2 children, you're a solo parent, you run 2 businesses, and I'm trying to have a life, that's just it's wholly impractical. And so doing half an hour of cleaning, I find very uninteresting, but also I find it doesn't give me any reward because I just look at the mess that's around the bit that I've cleaned and just have there's no interest in that for me at all. So I do, I've always had a cleaner probably since I was about 25, and without her, I think that Kasia, hello to Kasia. She's wonderful. She's been with me for about 8 or 9 years now, and without her,
shout out to Kasia.
But the house would just descend into unmanageable mess. I have pockets of mess all over, but she sort of she ring fences them for me, and then every now and again I throw them into a drawer or a box and put them into the utility, and then I think, oh well, I'm not missing that thing, because if I needed it, then I'll just go, I'll have to go and buy it again, or just stress about looking for it. But yeah, it is a challenge, and like when I talk about these things, like I can't do the washing up, I can't tidy my house very well. I know it sounds really just ludicrous, right? Like, who can't do that? But it's just it is like, because you're not interested in it, it never comes to the top of the priority list. There's always something else on your priority list that's much more interesting or more urgent, or more connective with your children or with your friends.
I actually think as well there's huge merit, and gosh, I think there's a real there's something to be said for being able to not prioritize that because it simply isn't important enough in general. Why should having everything tidy and perfect around be a priority when you have children that you want to spend time with? Like, where should we invest our time? I spoke to somebody recently on the podcast and said it's just simply not up there. If you were to choose half an hour tidying between half an hour of beautiful time connecting with your child, is it right anyway to prioritize tidying? Really, when you think about it, why would you? But I can also I can understand it from every level, and there needs to be more understanding, and I'm glad there is, because like you said, people do perhaps take it for granted or expect that everybody can bring themselves to tidy or do the washing up, and there's a lot of judgment that can be thrown at people who are sort of messy, or that if there's physical mess, and there's not an understanding enough of what actually the tribulations and the stresses and difficulties that neurodivergent people might encounter being faced with all of that. It's not as simple for them as, I'll just tidy up. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and the labels that they would have attached to themselves anyway, such as, I'm useless, I'm lazy, it's like that is running through people's heads anyway. And so, if you are, if day-to-day life is perpetuating that, what it is, because you walk around your own house just thinking, how am I so incapable of this all the time? And no matter how much you fight those critical voices, it's still hard to stop that program running.
Yeah, exactly. It can turn off the shame, because one horrible comment that is not going to have even been meant to be harming, from a friend coming around going, Jesus, this place is a right mess, why can't you tidy up after yourself, is going to have more of a negative impact on a neurodivergent person than it would on somebody who doesn't struggle in the same way. So
yeah, because of rejection sensitivity dysphoria as well, which is RSD, and the concept of that is that neurodivergent people are also highly sensitive, again, a spiky profile, so highly sensitive to positive feedback and get very elated and like really strong positive emotions, but also highly sensitive to negative feedback, and that often the negative feedback will invoke a shame spiral that will then just derail people completely. And then stop them, going about normal activities, for instance, or being able to just, feel okay going into work, or it might just knock people for a few days. That it's also just really not helpful. And I think respecting people's spaces and the way that they go about managing their homes should be given. It's just a bit like, why would you comment on it?
Completely. No, exactly. I would hope that people wouldn't, but sometimes just throwaway comments, aren't they, can be made and might have more of an impact on somebody who's more sensitive than you'd ever imagine. But hopefully that doesn't happen too much in general. Maybe loads of teenagers saying it to each other all the time. On a more positive note, however, what I've found during these conversations, and I'd love your take on this, is that people who may have a sort of messier mind or more chaotic, disordered thinking, but real like spikes and sparks of intuition and ideas and creativity, essentially, really, really results in some amazing creative adventures. So I've spoken to quite a few people who do art or are musicians, and they speak really, really well, and have made me realize that from what we might class as a mess or lots of disorder can actually result in absolutely amazing, beautiful art. I think there's a real association between art and messy, disorganized minds sometimes. And I wondered if there's anything that backs neurodivergent people as having like a stronger leaning towards creativity, or is there anything in that vein?
There was a white paper done for the Department of Digital Culture Media about, I think, just around lockdown time, on the creative industries. And one of the findings of that was that if you are in the creative industries or sector, you're twice as likely to be neurodivergent.
Really?
Yes.
So what? Twice?
Twice. And that would be because often, if we talk about the positives of having a divergent brain from I guess the general populace, the traits that often you will hear labelled are problem solving, great in a crisis, highly creative, pattern recognition, and being able to do big picture thinking, and of course that, the big picture thinking, the highly creative, the pattern side of things leans itself very much to a creative role. So you don't hear that enough, right? You don't hear those things enough. You just hear people say ADHD, it's a deficit, it's a disorder. Well, it's not, it's just a difference.
That's it. It needs to just be highlighted as a difference, especially like when we're messaging and communicating to children in the next generation. It's just a difference, an alternative brain rather than anything negative. That's what's so hard to sort of really, really re-emphasize, is that you want the dialogue and all of the discussion around this to be spun in a way that makes people feel okay about themselves and feel confident to own it.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's that much. I mean, it's a difference in the way that brains process information. And also, it's not necessarily standardized. You do see standard traits across people. But like, I don't process information the same way you process information. Like, I'm a verbal processor. So things come into my brain and I have realizations and ideas when I'm talking to people. So it's actually beneficial for me to spend more time in meetings that are geared that way, because I'm probably more likely to come up with a more successful idea. Yes, the processing can be from a different processing speed. It can be from like using like kinesthetic learning, auditory learning. It can be very visceral. It can be very intuitive. So it's just, it's just a slightly different way. And the general populace has I guess, a normal curve of this anyway. And just to say, it being a difference, 20% of the population is estimated to be neurodivergent. So it's not really, it's a bit of a difference from 80% of the population. But, and if those numbers are higher, it's not, I don't really like sort of distinguishing neurodivergent people from other people anyway. Like, it's not a hierarchical thing.
That's completely fair, because even just retracting what I was just saying, highlighting it and having to emphasize that it's a difference isn't probably that healthy either. It's actually trying to embrace it and factor it into being, I hate normal as well. You don't want to class it as normal, but it's just reality. And that's just realistic. Similarly to how this conversation that I'm trying to have around that mess is normal, mess is reality, that every human is messy to some extent. We all have to learn to function through difficult times. Everybody who's alive has emotions that fluctuate up and down. However we all function, we are all going to experience highs and lows, and it's finding our ways to operate within that and have a enjoyable life, and just acknowledging and not being made to feel bad that things are in a horrible mess, and really going, right, this might be a period that's challenging, and perhaps yes, things are feeling disorganized and chaotic, but that there are ways to tolerate it and work through it, and that's what we're all here to do together, hopefully.
And I think just to sort of make a note about the neurodivergent movement that's happening at the minute, and I know there's a little bit of backlash coming, and it feels like a bit of a tricky area, but all that this movement has come about from is lots of people feeling like they were overlooked through the schooling system, or like understanding themselves. Like, basically, where diagnosis for dyslexia started to pick up, quite some time ago, and dyslexic people were able to get some support. Now, if that happened across the board and there was screening at a young age, and then areas where challenges were identified and then the support was given, then we wouldn't even be having a neurodivergent discussion, I think, in 20 years' time. And it's the same with workplaces now. Like, neuro-inclusion is really important. You want your workforce to be as productive as possible. If they struggle with reading, writing, typing, whatever, then have the cheap software and tools available for anyone to access them, and then you will get the productivity back. It's a no-brainer for me. I'm like, I don't understand the pushback in big companies from this sort of thing. So,
rather than writing people off because actually they've got incredible skills usually, but if there are certain things that are preventing them from expressing and using their whole productivity, try and help enable them rather than write them off, which is what I think happens to children. It's simpler to just go, they're difficult, they're misbehaving, get rid of them, move on. And now actually, at least there's open conversation to, hopefully as well, with advances in technology, as you're saying, that's where the AI movement, I like to think, will be helpful in terms of software and things.
It's already been revolutionary for people, absolutely revolutionary for many neurodivergent people as well.
It's great.
And I'll make a note about messy kids. So, like, many neurodivergent kids are messy, but that is often because they are just struggling. And then they don't understand why, the parents don't understand why normal parenting methods really don't work, because you can't force a kid into doing something with punishment that they're not interested in, or or even controlling their hyperactivity. It just doesn't work that way. The way through it is understanding and compassion and education. And I think if we're able to educate the next generation on how to bring up children in a neuro-inclusive way, the society we're going to have is going to be immensely better and immensely more productive and happier than we currently have.
I hope so, because there's so much, we could have a whole separate conversation around children and parenting and access and support that there is for neurodiverse children. But even on the simplest of levels, children need to be able to, obviously there's going to be a different spectrum of how they behave and how neurodivergent children behave compared to those who aren't. But children need to be allowed, I believe at least, there are some parents that just don't even let their kids express themselves or let themselves loose and behave messily and go full. Until a certain age, if you don't endorse that and allow that and you shut them down and they're forced to repress themselves, that's again going to have a really powerfully horrible knock-on effect for them in later life. And I don't understand the full nature of children's brain development, but surely if they're being told from a young age that they've got to completely repress their mess and hold everything in and not be able to express their emotions, that's not going to help their brain development for later in life. But yeah, that's a whole different road that we can go down. So let me take you back. Can you finish telling me about your bit about your career in JPMorgan, because that's super interesting, and then how you got to the point that you're at now and when you became an ADHD coach?
So I joined as a graduate. I went through the usual promotions to associate to vice president, ran global teams. I was in the technology area the whole time. And then when I was working in equity capital markets, which is one of the areas where you have IPOs of companies, so you take companies public, and it's an advisory space. It's a very, very long hours space. I experienced quite a severe burnout, and it scared me, actually. I was 30, and I was really, it really, really scared the daylights out of me, to the point that I had a word with myself and said, okay, I can't do this career forever. I'm going to try and find an alternative career. And I asked for a sabbatical, and I took a year off, and I went around the world, where I embraced my messy self, I will say. And I, just while I was away, I heard about coaching. Life coaching just started to become a thing. And I liked the idea of it. And so when I got back, I went and did a short weekend course. And I remember within the first hour of being on that course, I felt in my body, this is what I'm meant to do. I think as a neurodivergent person going through the education system and often, you feel like you don't want to sit still, right? I never wanted to sit still at school. I couldn't sit still in offices. I swung on chairs in meetings. I got up and walked around. I walked around in my bare feet and didn't like wearing heels. And, there's that sensory association with it. And so you spend a lot of your life uncomfortable. And I remember distinctly the feeling of comfort I had in that moment when I thought coaching is for me.
That's great.
So I spent a long time transitioning. I actually trained as an NLP practitioner and a master practitioner, and became an NLP coach over a number of years whilst I went back to JPMorgan. And I worked 4 days a week for a while I started my own business as well. So I took a lot.
Wow. So you did go back and you were managing both. Gosh, because it sounds like quite a severe, a messy moment that had happened when you had that burnout experience, but you did manage to go back. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, a year off sitting on beaches in South America can do wonders for anyone.
Yeah, lovely. And were you in South America? Gorgeous. Yeah.
But interestingly enough, yes, I went back. Yes, I had 2 or 3 more jobs. And then the messiest moment came, which was when I was working in an area where we had 3 mergers in 2 years. And the projects you work on with mergers are fixed dates. You don't have an opportunity to get it wrong. And they were very aggressive timelines. And I just found myself very much working all the hours again. And I think I actually blame the London Marathon for this. But I was training for the London Marathon, and because I had so much stamina, because I wasn't drinking, because I was eating really well, because I was sleeping well, which is often a thing neurodivergent people struggle with, I felt better than I actually was, and I really pushed myself way beyond where I should have done.
I was going to say, casually dropping in there that you were also running the London Marathon and training for that whilst you were working on all these mergers and having to do really late nights and high pressure. No wonder you hit a point. Gosh, yes, that's a...
I mean, you find like a lot of ADHDers are runners, so we're naturally drawn to them. A lot of ADHDers find what they need to do, like the way of physically moving. You'll find that it's quite an intuitive thing. But I love running. Unfortunately, my knee's a bit done in it at the minute, and I can't. But yeah, it's something that I find very, very emotionally regulating.
I spoke to someone else on the podcast who we both know, John, actually, who really, really just hugely recommended running for calming the mind, for helping work through lots of thoughts. And that was a big tip from him in terms of something that helps the mess in the mind was running.
Well, and all exercise, gives you dopamine. So it's perfect.
Exactly.
But yeah, I got to the point where I know my business partner was having a word with me saying, Nat, I'm really worried about you. You're repeating yourself in meetings. I was unable to make decisions. I had complete decision paralysis. I wasn't making strategic decisions anymore. My brain basically started to shut down. And I decided I was going to resign. I decided that was it, because the second time it happened, I was like, I'm not willing to risk a third. And I left. When I left, and while you're in these states, you can't really clearly see them. You just have that feeling of when you're hyperactive internally, you have the feeling that you're sort of run by a motor. It's like a really weird sensation, but I start off and you sort of start feeling like someone's pedaling on a little bicycle inside you. And as you move through the day, you get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And I felt like the wheels were going to come off. Like that's how I constantly felt. And then that brings anxiety with it as well. Because,
that must have not felt comfortable at all. Out of interest, random aside, but perhaps not semi-random, do you drink caffeine?
I do a little bit. I'm very sensitive to proper caffeine. So I drink tea and I allow myself 1 proper coffee a day.
Sure. I wondered, because that's the only time that I would say I feel an equivalent sensation of that nature maybe is when I've got loads of caffeine inside me. I feel like a motor goes on.
Yeah, and I actually, a lot of people use caffeine for focus. I know, we all use caffeine for focus, but actually for ADHD, it can be really, really amazing. It can give you a real, you can go from stuck in the mud, not able to action anything, just feeling really to a coffee can get you 20 minutes, and get you started on that email that you've been procrastinating over for the last 3 days.
I have heard that, because similarly, the stimulant medication, that's what helps, again, focus the mind, isn't it? The ADHD medication of the stimulant nature, like one would be. Brings
everything into focus. I think if you I feel like I've got a 270 view all the time. I'm constantly alert to what's behind me at the side and in front. And what coffee can do is to bring that tunnel in, so I can just see what's straight there. And that's really helpful. But yeah, so when I left with this messy moment of burnout, I gave myself nothing to do, but I knew I had that backup plan that I was going to start my coaching business, and I'm sure it would all be fine. But what was scary was I had nothing to do in the day, but I actually couldn't settle. I was so agitated, but I couldn't settle to anything. I actually couldn't do anything.
Right,
And
paralysis.
I'd hit that point, like clearly, like my body wasn't functioning properly. And it took me 3 months to get back to normality, actually. And this is why I do work with a lot of people who are in the throes of burnout. And I say to them, like, I've been to that level. And when you're at that level, it does take a piece of flesh of you. It takes a piece of you. You will never probably get back. And it also, it puts fear into you. So I was very clear that my next career life was going to be something that I could look after myself, have more self-care, have flexibility. That didn't require me to go full pal all the time, because I probably my body wouldn't necessarily take that anymore anyway.
Did you have to allow yourself full rest then? Because I find that's something we're all struggling with, is to fully dedicate yourself to be able to rest. Did you just have to give in and fully rest? Could you, or were you just...
burnout is weird that sleeping, you can't sleep your way out of burnout, because essentially, like, the mitochondria in your body have to start functioning properly again. They go into a weird process, and that you have to wait for that process to stop. But meanwhile, you've got to, you've basically got to be gentle on yourself. You've got to really look after yourself, eat nourishing food, stimulate yourself a little bit, but not too much, exercise a little bit, but not too much. You sort of basically, you start to operate in a very small zone.
And gradually work your way back up.
Like more sleep, and often what comes with burnout is an inability to sleep properly, and that just actuates the problem. So that was messy, and I after I overcame that, I did start my coaching business, and took a while to build it up. I was lucky; I'd put some money aside to support myself while I built my business, which I would say practically is a great tip for anyone who's looking to start their own business. Is get 6 months' salary somewhere, so that you can afford to live on beans on toast or whatever, but know you can pay the bills and the mortgage, and that would make you less anxious in starting a business. And I just grew my business from there.
Amazing. And now you are a wealth and fountain of knowledge, and you're helping other people through their mess.
Yes.
So figure it out and pass it on. Amazing.
Well, you start with what you know, right? So I started as a career coach and as a career change coach, mainly for people in finance, because lots of people in finance want to leave. But over the years, I've become a small business coach because lots of people wanted to start their own businesses. I've also become a creative specialist and creative industry specialist and a business coach, because that's where we live, and lots of people are creative, but also lots of neurodivergent people are, and I think attract them to me. And then I realized that normal coaching wasn't helping people who really were struggling with executive function problems. And I decided, after I got diagnosed when I was 47, which was like 3 years ago, I decided that I was going to I was going to train and add ADHD coaching to my toolkit. And I spent a year last year with Goldmind Academy, going through a very introspective process, healing process of my own ADHD, but coming out the other side with a wealth of resources and understanding for others. So
amazing. Yeah. So now you're fully qualified in that specialism. That's brilliant. I'll put lots of links in the show notes to how people can find you and find out how to work with you. What, on that note, are some tools or tips that you use that you find, whether it's in coaching or even on a personal note, to others, friends, clients, to help themselves when they find themselves in a bit of a funk or a mental disarray, finding things difficult?
Well, I'd say, like, in the moment, like, don't push yourself past something. Like, if you're struggling in the moment, the best thing you can do is just blur it all out onto paper. Like, if your head has got too much going on, if you're stressing, if you're anxious, you're worrying, just get it out on paper, because actually removing that from your brain will give yourself more brain capacity to be able to function better. And you can do anything you want with that. You can either keep it or you can burn it or throw it in the bin. It doesn't matter. But there's a need for processing, and actually processing handwritten. Typing does not do the same thing.
No, I can see that. I'm doing the Artist's Way, the Julia Cameron at the moment, and I'm doing the morning pages. Sometimes I'm not making 3 pages because I'll have my daughter waking me up and badgering me, but there is a different feeling to writing. I have had people also say, though, that voice noting themselves, speaking it aloud, can have a good result also, to feel as if you've expressed and downloaded and processed a bit. Speaking it out loud, but just typing for sure is not the one.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in my experience, like talking therapies are quite tricky with neurodivergent people because we can get very cerebral.
Get in their heads too much, yes.
And I think a lot of like emotions sit in the body, and we need to access our bodies. And you can also find people can cut themselves off at the neck often, and then they can't even go down to say, what am I feeling? So I use something called the Feelings Wheel.app, which is a lovely spinny wheel of emotions that allows people to get into the feelings. And some people can only go with macro feelings, so those feelings of anger and sadness and happiness. And then it's got 3 layers, and you can push out to try and identify where in the body you're feeling, and then label it. So a big piece of work for many neurodivergent people is to help them get into their bodies and understand what they're feeling, and therefore they'll know what their needs are. The Feelings Wheel app as well is like you can log your feelings 3 times a day and look at the pattern over it as well. So I really
like that. Visual representation too is helpful. I have had people say to me before, Liv, you need to get out of your head and get into your body, which is why I started dancing. I really do love dance. Not that I'm especially good, but throwing your body around, movement and somatics, and even the butterfly tapping, things like that, just sensations in the body. Yeah, definitely.
Completely. I also I do somatic dancing with Cher Brighton, who's based locally.
Yes, I've been to Cher's dance. Yes, I'm hoping to have her on the podcast very soon.
Amazing.
Shout out, Cher.
I've got to say, like, of all the things that have helped me to emotionally regulate myself, flow dance meditation is the one. But the ethos is that whilst Cher is an amazing DJ and puts some amazing tracks together, and it's almost like, as I said, I like to go and raving, it's like having that in your lunch hour. But what it does is it asks you to inquire in your body, and you let your body move as it needs to move, and that connection I find so powerful. So self-connection is a big thing for emotional regulation, and then emotional regulation is a big thing to allow you to focus and allow you to manage your energy levels and complete tasks. So somatics, very good. EFT, as you mentioned, the tapping, I do EFT every week. So just getting in the body, connecting with your emotions, working out your needs. I have a structured process for that I use, which is my morning journal, and it's available on my website as a download. But essentially, it's very quick. You can do it in 10 minutes every morning. You just express your gratitude for 3 things yesterday, 3 wins from yesterday, what wisdom you had, how you're feeling, what your needs are for the day ahead, and then planning the day ahead in terms of self-care, what you're going to eat, how you're going to move, and the 3 things you really need to get done today to focus you in. So I've found that I've used that over the last 2 years. And although I would say never beat yourself up if you haven't done it. Some days I miss it, some weeks I miss it, but I always come back to it, and it makes a big difference to how I'm feeling in the morning.
Great, thank you for sharing that. We'll look into that for sure. And are there anyone, I've asked people if there's anyone that's really had an impact on them that they either know or have studied with, or that are even in the celebrity sphere, or like a public figure who is inspiring and you've looked and you can think you've really thrived within, or you've come through these messy stages and are now thriving, or you've learned something from? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
I was going to use a fun one actually, but now you say that, I'm kind of like, I need.
You can have fun. We could still have fun. There could be fun and serious. What, up to you?
Well, I guess someone who I admire, which is quite random for me, is Stacey Solomon. Actually, like
not random. She's great.
She is amazing, and obviously the program that she does with I've got to give a shout out to her declutterer as well. She called I can't remember her name. She called Dizzy. No, I'll think of her name anyway. But she's written a book, by the way, and I've got her decluttering book, and it is amazing. So I'll give you that for the show notes.
Amazing. I'll put that in the show notes.
But Sort Your Life Out is it's a very inspirational program, and Stacey Solomon just knows how to approach someone in the right way and care about their things, and also deal with that shame that people have.
I was going to say, putting things on a level to make it not feel shameful, and that, this is more, again, there's got to be better words and language for mess and better language and words for normal. I'm going to keep digging into the synonyms that I can use, because normal, again, is just making people feel comfortable. And I agree, I haven't watched that show loads, but I know exactly what you mean. I think she's definitely a good person to point to, who makes people feel comfortable with whatever scenario and situations that they're in.
And also, I mean, she's got her own program with her and Joe do about their family, which I've watched a bit of. I know she's got 5 children, I think 3 under the age of 5 children, 3 under the age of 3.
Wow.
And their health, their life is just like chaotic, right?
Mayhem.
She's trying to parent a really quite old teen at the same time as a 12-year-old and 3 babies, pretty much. And deal with Joe Squash, who's quite messy anyway.
Exactly.
But she just seems to I think she just sort of just doesn't worry about. She's not got the hang-ups and the worries about how you come across or what's overthinking all those things. She just embraces the chaos and comes out with her heart. And I think from that, she seems like such a genuine person. So I'm going to give her a shout out. And she inspires me to declutter as well. But I want to shout out to my declutterer, who's Sophie for the Love of Things on Instagram. She's also awesome.
Wonderful.
She's
Hi,
great
Sophie.
with kids' toys.
Really great. I love that. I do. I feel when I finally do finish my flat up, again, I went through a full, nice, intensive phase where I was really into it, really engaged, got some work done, did some painting, and now everything has just been abandoned and I need to get the motivation back. And then once that's done, at the moment, I've got piles. Can't really call it mess, but there's just boxes of tiles, there's bits of shelving, there's a cabinet I've taken it out of the boxes to make it, and I go in there daily, look at it and go, I can't make this. I don't know how to do it. And I've literally just left it for weeks. Erin comes home going, Mummy, you're going to make that cupboard? I'm like, not today. But so perhaps that's maybe more a handyman, not a declutterer, to help me build things. But great, I'll have to look up Sophie. And then I think this is honestly, it's been such an amazing conversation, brilliant and engaging, and I've really, really, really enjoyed it. But I feel as if we are coming to the point where we can wrap up, and I wanted to end, as I do end the podcast every week, asking you whether you've got a song taking me back to my old career roots in music. I still love music, and I've asked everybody if there is a song or two that makes you think of mess, has gotten you through a messy song.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to Tom York and PJ Harvey, who are some of my favourite singers. This mess we're in, which I'm sure you've had before and probably will have many times again.
It is on the playlist, but you can absolutely have it again. I know I put it on there as well, and then one of the first guests put it on, so it's nice to get it back in.
It's just it reminds me of messy emotional situations, and it allows you to go to a place of melancholy in a brilliant place in New York and just sit there with it. And that's, I think sitting with mess is so important, particularly with emotional mess. Like when the shit really hits the fan, you got to just sit with yourself, and you got to sit yourself through it, or just be with yourself. And that's been my experience.
That's a really good point, is people do tend to think they have to run away from it or fix it or hide it or immediately solve it. And actually that is so worthwhile considering and acknowledging that you've got to sit in it sometimes. You've got to recognize and acknowledge that, yeah, you are in a mess and you will work through it, but you don't have to, it's not necessarily resolvable immediately always.
Yeah, and I think, so the second song I'm going to mention is really about, it gave me hope in times when things were really, really challenging for me. Okay. And it's My Silver Lining by First Aid Kit.
Oh, gorgeous song. Yes.
It is. And it really, it just gives me, it has the feeling of movement, which is what a lot of ADHDers need. I love being on a train. I love being on an airplane. I love biking. I love roller skating. You need to be moving through something. And that song has that feeling for me. And so, I think having the hope there that you will get out of this mess and that light at the end of the tunnel is so important. And it allows you to stay in the mess, really, and try and gain comfort with it.
Oh, gorgeous. That is getting added to the playlist for First Aid Kit, My Silver Lining. I love it. Thank you, Nat. I have loved this chat. I really have. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. I am going to ensure that your website and everybody is able to find you and your coaching service and all the lovely tips to things that you've referenced in the show notes. I'll pop those in there. And just brilliant. Thank you. Amazing insight. I've really appreciated the chat.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Liv. And thank you for touching on a topic that is so much overlooked. And in our mad society where we're all stimulated via a phone or a TV or YouTube or whatever, we're constantly on all the time. I think you can easily distract yourself from mess and not tend to it, and that is the one way that will get you into a lot more trouble. So turning into it is great.
Yes, let's tune in. We'll carry on tuning into the mess. Thank you, Nat.
See you later. Bye.
I am so grateful to you for tuning in and allowing some more mess to be uncovered with me. The Mess We're In is edited by David Strutt, music by Michelle Cade, who you can find on Spotify as Mind Like Water, and I am Liv Nunn. If you enjoyed this episode, it would make such a difference if you can hit follow or subscribe and share in any way. It really helps get this conversation flowing in a less messy manner. If you want to know how to connect with me, all the details are in the show notes. I'll be back very soon to spotlight and honour more of our messy selves. Be open, be kind, be messy.